Live from Rialto, California, Mark Flores analyzes WWE Payback 2016 review and analysis, plus 3 things to take away from this pay-per-view. Here's your host, Mark Flores. Thank you guys for tuning in to these WWE Payback review and analysis, plus 3 things to take away from each match. I'm your host, Mark Flores, on this fantastic pay-per-review podcast. Keep in mind that this pay-per-view podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. You could come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share my podcast via Instagram, Facebook, or any form of social media, you will be able to get a discount through Game Swappers on your retro game purchases or towards your trade-in of any of your retro game consoles or games. That would be 10% off towards any of your purchase, or that would be 10% more towards your trade-in. You could do one or the other. This applies to U.S. only, and the trade-ins only apply to in-store transactions only. Okay, guys, so WWE Payback. This Payback pay-per-view is usually started in the beginning of May. This actually comes off. This is the setup of a back-to-back to Extreme Rules. The Extreme Rules pay-per-view is 3 weeks from now, this Sunday. So what we have here is basically an establishing point to the to after WrestleMania, basically the precursor to the events towards SummerSlam. So what we got here is the undercard of WWE Payback. We have Dolph Ziggler versus Baron Corbin. I myself was expecting Baron Corbin to make this a squash match, but I'm very glad and very pleased to tell you that Dolph Ziggler actually came away with the victory. Baron Corbin isn't in any acceptable shape for WWE pushes, in my opinion. I don't think his gimmick is being translated really well to the main roster. I really don't think that he has the look nor the moveset to bring himself up to the next level. But I'm glad that this was on the undercard match instead of being on the main card. You can essentially say that WWE Payback started at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and ended at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, and ended at 8 p.m. Pacific Time as well. So it took well over 4 hours to get all this taken care of. Maybe it lasted a shorter amount of time because I was experiencing delays the place where I was at, but the 3 things that we could take away from the Dolph Ziggler-Baron Corbin match is that Baron Corbin stays at a stagnated position. Dolph Ziggler kind of gets elevated to the level that he should slowly start getting back to, but as of this point right now, it's kind of like that Dolph Ziggler is really not necessarily going to be anywhere higher than mid-card. He's pretty much going to run out his contract and pretty much retire at the end of 2017, maybe the beginning of 2017, but that's been the rumor going on for a while, is that he is just going to ride out his contract. He even verified it via his Twitter account. Another thing to take away from this is that Baron Corbin, this kind of shows you that creative doesn't have the trust as they should with Baron Corbin. Usually in this kind of setup, the younger guy would go and take the victory from the experienced age veteran to get some credibility towards his stature, but Baron Corbin ended up taking a loss tonight. So that's good in my book. I don't think Baron Corbin is actually going to be an established superstar in my opinion, but we'll end up seeing. I have no crystal ball here, so this is just merely my assumptions on that end. The other match that we needed to point out was Kalisto versus Ryback. Oh man, this match itself was actually a great match. The size differential actually came into play As I mentioned before on the previous match that they had at the WrestleMania, Ryback is able to toss Kalisto any which way he wants, just like a rag doll. But there were some great spots here tonight. You had Ryback doing his part by being the giant that Kalisto has to defeat. The David, which is Kalisto, to the giant, which is Ryback. Size differential matches do come into play a lot. They do benefit the people that are in those matches to some extent. It's very believable that Kalisto can take down Ryback as he's done before, because this is his second title defense. We're talking the first instance was at WrestleMania, and then this second instance, which is the WWE Payback 2016. One thing to begin to take away from this is that the exchanges that Kalisto and Ryback had were quite possibly one of the best moves, one of the best spots of this whole match. Ryback had the gorilla press from the top rope, and oh man, Kalisto ended up taking a huge bump at the bottom. It was very good to watch this match. I'm very glad to say that this match actually received various applauses to and fro the whole match. So they definitely did appreciate what they brought to the table, despite the fact that the prestige of the U.S. title isn't where it needs to be, because these titles do need to have prestige back to them. Slowly but surely, these titles will have that prestige, but we need to find the right person to do it. But anyway, the great spots all tonight from Kalisto and Ryback. This is probably one of the unsung matches, one of the most unsung matches of the whole night. I really did enjoy it myself. Not a lot of people are really fond of Ryback or Kalisto, but Kalisto as a U.S. champ is definitely getting huge pops for it, because he does a tribute to the Hispanic demographic. Which, I have no problem enjoying, because I myself do enjoy the lucha libre style of wrestling, and Kalisto definitely has that in spades. The beginning part of Payback starts off with Enzo and Cass versus the Vaudevillains. To beat a dead horse, I just want to let you know that Enzo is so over, it's not even a joke. He definitely works well selling the psychology before the hot tag comes along in every match he does. I mean, as you could see, the typical MO of Enzo and Cass is that what Enzo does, he takes a beating for about 10 minutes and then gets the hot tag into Colin Cassidy. So that's definitely great. But early in the match, unfortunately, I have the bad news to tell you, is that Enzo actually suffered a concussion, a real live non-work concussion. He actually hit his top head off the second rope, and to the people that do not know is that second rope and all the ropes involved in this wrestling ring do have tense recoil. So the recoil off of Enzo's head ricocheted him back to the canvas, and he hit so hard that he actually got knocked out. So you could definitely tell that Enzo was taking this 100% full force, and that this actually stunted the growth of Enzo and Cass. Not necessarily to an extent where it's going to be like, where's Enzo and Cass now? No, it's not going to be like that. It'll never be like that. As long as Enzo has a microphone in his hand, it will not go away. So you can definitely expect Enzo to possibly come back for Monday Night Raw. It's definitely possible. There's tons of photos via Instagram and Twitter, definitely showing you that he is okay. He's definitely out of the hospital, and he is quite possibly might be cleared to actually not do a match, but probably cut a promo for Colin Cassidy. We'll see. The only time will tell, and right now it's about 12:01 a.m. Pacific time here in lovely Rialto, California. So hopefully only time will tell to see what we got going on. I just one thing we have to take away from this match, and hopefully that this doesn't deter any momentum from the Red Hot Tag Team. Second, the Vaudevillains definitely kind of needed this as their break, because now what the Vaudevillains can do is that the Vaudevillains can probably get into a little exchange program with the Dudley Boys, and have the Dudley Boys had the Vaudevillains go over on the Dudley Boys to add more prestige to these guys. Hopefully that can happen. Hopefully that might happen, but we'll only see. Only time will tell. So we just gotta hope for the best, especially for the Vaudevillains. I mean, I'm not really fond of their gimmick, but for what they can provide, I mean, Aiden English is definitely a very talented man on the mic. So as long as he can blossom with that ability, then he'll definitely have those heel-like tactics as far as promoting an event, drawing heat when needed, etc., etc. So another two more things to take from this match is that we definitely feel for Enzo and Cass. I mean, Enzo Amore was trending on Facebook today for the injury that he suffered tonight. So he is definitely popular. For him to start trending on a social media site just by itself is very showing of how many people actually care about him. Cass needs to worry about his career, especially because without Enzo, you have no mouthpiece, and without the mouthpiece, it's really hard for Enzo to actually. Not Enzo. It's really hard for Cass to actually get over with people without Enzo. So that's another two other things to take away from this. Let me go on to the next match that's on the card. Let's see what we have here. Then we immediately, right after Enzo Amore was injured and they actually called the match. By the way, not to mention that that Kalisto ended up retaining the U.S. title by Selena del Sol. And the Enzo Amore and Vaudevillains match was called due to an injury. So you can definitely see that the Vaudevillains ended up not winning this match just because they weren't supposed to win this match. That's why they called it. So it was definitely obvious to see that. So let's just go from there. Right after that, Michael Cole immediately segued into the Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens match. This was sadly an average build-up to a very hot rivalry, a very Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels-esque rivalry. The commentary team wanted to emphasize that this is the new era. They emphasized that phrase itself about 4 or 5 times. And the way creative likes to do things is they like to say things repetitively for it to stick within the WWE universe. So it's definitely going to stick with me, as I would want to call this era the new era. Because as of right now, if you looked at the card from Payback 2016 to Payback 2015, you'll definitely see a difference in roster changes. Both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have their own solid identity. That's one thing. Another additional thing to take away is that Sami Zayn cannot be a heel. And then Kevin Owens cannot be a babyface. Both of these guys work better in those said directions. It's easy to see that, so let's just hope that they can progress their careers in that type of one direction there. The movesets between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens is just awesome. These two have been wrestling each other through several promotions, so this rivalry has barely started in the WWE, and creative needs to believe in both of these guys to run a program that's going to elevate them to the next level. Let's hope they do. But what ended up happening was Sami Zayn ended up losing by pinfall by Kevin Owens' pop-up powerbomb. It was a good match. It was a very dense match with several moves going back and forth. You had Sami Zayn doing his dive between the turnbuckle and the outside of the arena. That's always good to see. He did his suicide dive over the top ropes, flipped kind of like a senton flip into Kevin Owens. That's always good to see as well. But another additional thing to take away from this is that these two guys are definitely going to not only fight once, but they're going to fight more and more and more, because people are going to keep on wanting to see this. Hopefully this turns into a 3-out type of match, kind of like the John Cena, Kevin Owens rubber matches that they had. So hopefully Sami Zayn can take another one victory for the sake of being a face, and have Kevin Owens just close it out to bring more emphasis towards bringing the Intercontinental title to Kevin Owens. So hopefully we can get that. The next match on the card, we had The Miz versus Cesaro. For what it's worth, Miz is the only formidable mid-card heel to keep this IC title on, as far as being prestigious. The Miz himself is knowing to be somewhat boisterous, somewhat of someone that possesses a lot of braggadocio. The Miz is definitely that. So what we have here is that the Miz is definitely doing his job. I don't like the Miz, but then that definitely means that he's doing his job. He is definitely a hard worker. I don't take anything away from the Miz as far as his production and his skill set. He is a great heel. For him to have even more heat by even having a more attractive a valet, which is Maurice, it's definitely more heat, especially with the fans that are there. Cesaro, on the other hand, was definitely looking great. He did his part on this part of the match by dominating about 80% of the time to the Miz's 20. There was a lot of good matches. There's a lot of good spots that I saw. I saw the deadlift suplex. I saw several great exchanges between the Miz and Cesaro, so it's definitely great to see. I saw a crossface submission hold by Cesaro as well. What ended up happening is that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens started fighting in the outside part of the arena, and they ended up taking it up to the upper part of the ring. Cesaro got wind of this and ended up pushing them to the side, causing Miz to roll up with the trunks, getting a heel pin. 1, 2, 3, and that called the match. Two other things to take away from this match is that Cesaro is definitely getting his just due. I hate seeing Cesaro toil around in the lower to mid card. He doesn't deserve that. He deserves to be the upper mid card and upper card athlete, because his moveset and his appeal to the audience is definitely there. The Cesaro section signs were out in abundance, which is good. So we definitely see that, and WWE definitely sees that. So that's why they're putting a lot more emphasis and trust upon Cesaro. The Miz is definitely able to retain this Intercontinental title. It's good to see that, but we all kind of wanted to see Cesaro take it away, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So we just keep moving on. Hopefully they have a match at Extreme Rules 2016, so that way we can actually get some closure on this whole rivalry here, because ending the match on a heel type of pin doesn't really constitute as an end to the storyline. It only makes it enhanced, so we'll definitely see from there. The next match we had on the card was Dean Ambrose versus Y2J. The match was average, and that's all you'll get when it comes to a Y2J match, especially when you see that Y2J isn't in the best shape that you've seen him previously. But Y2J is doing his job by being a high-tier enhancement talent for Dean Ambrose. This match went back and forth. Several submissions were tried. It's definitely good to see Dean Ambrose be this hot wire, challenging people left and right. So it's definitely good. But what we need to see is that Dean Ambrose needs to hoist up that heavyweight title one of these days. That has been one of the loose-ended payoffs that we've all needed to see, but it hasn't happened again in a long time. So hopefully we get to see that. But what ended up happening here is that Dean Ambrose ended up performing dirty deeds on Y2J. Y2J gets covered for the pin, and that was it. Y2J is a shell of his former self, but that's not saying anything to diminish his skills athletically, but it's very noticeable. I myself do enjoy the presence of Dean Ambrose, so it's definitely something to behold with seeing this guy, especially him being part of the new era. But one thing we need to see, one of the questions I had instead of having things to take away from this part is, can WWE put Dean Ambrose in a meaningful rivalry? We need him to be part with either when Seth Rollins comes back or one of these guys to put meaning to something. That's what we all need to see Dean Ambrose go for. He needs to win the world title. He's been dicked away too many times from that title, so that's one thing we need to see. The Walls of Jericho doesn't seem feared anymore. Everyone's able to just squeeze on through it or hit the ropes. So the Walls of Jericho apparently only works for jobbers. This victory between Dean Ambrose and Y2J. This victory leads both men stagnant, and it's just a simple filler match for the card. Dean Ambrose doesn't get that much prestige by beating Y2J, and Y2J gets to stay at the same level. Y2J is pretty much at a position where he is only enhancement talent. So the last two that we have on the docket is Charlotte versus Natalya, with Bret Hart in the corner for Natalya, and Charlotte had Ric Flair, her father, in the corner as well. To put emphasis on Dean Ambrose's last the match that he just had, he ended up finishing it with Dirty Deeds, so that's the end to that match. But with Charlotte and Natalya, this was a great exchange in the beginning of the match. From the beginning to the middle part of the match, this was very I was very expected to see. I was expecting to see Charlotte just dominate about most of the match, but that Natalya actually ended up taking it for a little bit, so it was good to see that. This is a match that was very sound technically. These two ladies have fought before in NXT, so you're able to see some moves that they probably used in NXT. So it's great to see. It's great to see those two ladies actually fight it out for one title. The match ended on suspicious terms. Charlotte was able to get the sharpshooter performed on, and then Charles Robinson immediately calls for the bell, but Natalya didn't tap, so it's kind of weird. But it was more along the lines of being a Montreal Screwjob type of story. So, especially with Bret there, I mean, that's pretty much throwing salt in the wound when it comes to calling Bret about the Montreal Screwjob. So, two other things to take away from this match is that people will love to see Charlotte's moonsault from time to come. That's what she's always going to do. That's going to be her bread and butter. As far as Natalya goes, Natalya needs to find a good spot to be in, because as far as this goes, she's had 2 title shots and neither of them have been taken. So we'll see what creative has in store for her, but it's good to see that she's actually able to go against Charlotte and actually put on a good match. This is the Montreal Screwjob angle was one of the most refreshing and hilarious endings I've seen in a long time. So it was very good to see that. It was very good to see that. There's some shenanigans afoot, especially when it's trying to make Charlotte look good as a heel. So they're definitely doing the part on that end. AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns. This match was a great match. I personally like that AJ Styles was actually going a little bit more in depth into this match. Roman Reigns is still getting booed out of the building, but that's what ends up happening. Who knows what's going to happen with Roman Reigns, but we'll see. But it's a relief to see Roman Reigns use moves that he's never used before. I've seen him, he actually used a modified version of the Batista Bomb, which is good to see. So it actually shows, how he's able to pull stuff like that off. All of the important spots in this match were on point. I didn't see no botches. Everything went pretty smooth. I don't know whether or not AJ Styles or Roman Reigns actually call matches organically, or they're able to just do it on the fly and call their spots with their opponent. So, but another thing to take away is the strength of AJ Styles, because AJ Styles turned a fireman's carry into a modified backbreaker. He was able to lift up Roman Reigns, and for those who don't know, AJ Styles is actually able to be seen as a formidable opponent that can actually put in some work on the end there. But one thing that you were able to see off the bat is that AJ Styles is pretty much not going to win this, and that's what ended up happening. Is that Roman Reigns ended up winning via pinfall after they tried to disqualify the match twice via a low blow, or even was it a low blow and then a count out. Each Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon came out respectively during their times. Stephanie McMahon came out during the last time to establish that this was a no holds barred match. Actually, no disqualification match. The time before is that Roman Reigns actually was able to see that. Roman Reigns was able to to definitely use moves that he hasn't used in a long time as well. That was definitely something to see as well. The phenomenal forearm went through the announce table. That was a good spot. I like seeing that, and I'm liking the fact that the phenomenal forearm looks better than the Superman punch. But having it through the announce table was definitely epic. It was definitely good to see that. A couple more things to take away from these reviews here is that the changes from the McMahons was key to building the drama that led to this whole match unfolding. It was definitely a slow blossom to the WWE Payback. It was definitely it was above average. Not a lot of swerves. But one thing that they have to do is that nearing the end of the match when Roman Reigns was fighting AJ Styles is that the phenomenal forearm was used on Roman Reigns, and then he gets thrown into the ring near a good spot for AJ Styles to use the 450 splash, but that only equaled up to a 2 count. Normal people probably wouldn't get up from the phenomenal forearm, so it just kind of sucks to see that all this stuff still didn't help out the team. It just sucks to see that. So, but with creative on hand, one thing to tell creative off the bat, I didn't write any more than this, but to tell creative off the bat, you guys are doing a great job as far as finding the new era batch of superstars. But as far as trying to find new talent, it's going to be hard because you guys are already taken up most of New Japan Pro Wrestling anyway. But Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson were able to interfere, but even with the interference, the Usos were able to come out and calm everything on the storm. So it definitely was a match that went haywire. But luckily it was still a good match, especially on AJ's end. I think AJ's back literally hurts because he was carrying the whole match on top of his back. As far as that goes, that's all I have for the WWE Payback pay-per-review. You have been listening to the Pay-Per-Review Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Flores, and just to let you know is that this Pay-Per-Review Podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. Keep in mind you could come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. One more thing to mention, guys, is that if you do share my Spreaker website or any one of my podcasts, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your purchase at Game Swappers. If you share it and you want to get trade-in value, you'll get 10% more towards your trade-ins. So it's definitely good to actually share this. And if you like it, just share, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Do what you have to do. That way I know as long as I get subscribers and as long as I get YouTube viewers and stuff, it lets me know what I need to do to amplify to get my numbers higher, because I do have high expectations for all my podcasts. But other than that, one big thing to take away from this pay-per-view is that the Bullet Club did not start tonight. Finn Balor might be able to sneak in a quick not Chicago appearance, but wherever they're showing up at Raw next time, we'll be able to see where they're at. So hopefully we get to see it. Hopefully we get to see Finn Balor on Monday Night Raw, but we'll see. Maybe it's going to be a setup for an Extreme Rules match, so we'll just have to wait and see. But other than that, that has been my review on Payback 2016. To those that are uninitiated, I give it about 3.5 stars out of 5. Just because the fact is that there was little validity to some of the movesets, and there's little validity to make it seem real on the end. I know wrestling's basically a performance, but it's good to see that some people are actually still around the way and willing to go around that way. But anyway, I just wanted to close out on this. You guys have a good night and be safe. Thank you.